A popular fantasy football draft strategy every year is team stacking, when you try to get multiple guys from the same team into your fantasy lineup. And just like Jenga, when you team stack, when well executed, it can give you a good sense of balance and help you bring down the competition. And that's why you should try your hand at mock drafting to see how you can team stack within your lineup and test out different strategies. Because when you don't get the right amount of balance, everything can come crashing down, just like the game here. So, today in our mock draft video, we're going to be talking about team stacking in our mock drafts and how to best utilize that strategy and what teams you should be focusing on in 2020. Son of a Welcome back to the Fantasy Headliners, Headliner Nation. What's going on, everybody out there? Kyle here on another Mock Draft Monday. And just like we've done over the last couple of weeks, we're going to be talking about some draft strategies that you can test out in your mock drafts this offseason to see if they are something you want to utilize in your real drafts. Now, for those of you that are new to team stacking, let me try and explain a little bit real quick what that is. It's not just going to be getting our favorite quarterback and his favorite wide receiver. It's going to be getting multiple guys from the same team into your fantasy lineup. So when you team stack, you're typically talking about the quarterback, the running back, and a pass catcher from the same team, whether it be the tight end or the wide receiver. So in this video, we're going to talk a little bit about the best team stack for 2020. I've got a few of them that I really like this year. I've got a few of them that are okay, but I'm really not jumping on board with right now. And then I'm also going to talk about several teams that you're probably not going to be able to stack because all of this information is based on current ADP. So a team like the New Orleans Saints, which you might be saying, Kyle, they have the best team stack in the NFL. Well, you're not going to be able to do that, and I'll tell you why here in a couple of minutes. But again, if you're coming to this video days, weeks, whatever it may be after it actually comes out, it is based on current ADP, the day of which it was dropped. So if things are a little bit different because of injuries or anything and you come across this later on, just check the date to make sure you are watching our most up-to-date information. And as always, hit that subscribe button down below because with the Fantasy Headliners, we do a lot of deep diving videos when we're talking about a couple of players here and there. But on this video, when we're talking about a bunch of players at one time, we're not going to be diving nearly as deep. So make sure you hit that like button and stick around so you can check out all the other information that we've got going on for you. So let's jump into it real quick. And the first team stack that I'm absolutely loving this year is the Atlanta Falcons. They are a team stack that I am trying to get my hands on as much as possible. And you should be too if you are looking at that type of strategy this year. Number one, Julio Jones is a guy that I really, really like, coming in at 1.12 in the current ADP. So you can get your wide receiver one right there. You can skip over that second round, and then you can get the Atlanta running back, Todd Gurley, at the 3.02. And one of the things that makes this one of the best team stacks of the year is Matt Ryan's ADP of 7.01. So you're going to be getting a potentially high-powered offense where you can get your wide receiver one in round one, and then in round two, you could get your running back one. So in round two, depending on how the dominoes fall, who is there, maybe a Sanders falls, Eckler could be there, Mixon, Chubb, Jacobs. Some of those guys could be there. So then in round three, you take Todd Gurley as your running back two, because I like Todd Gurley this season. I think he's going to get a tremendous amount of workload. Even with his knee, if he's in some type of pain, I don't think he's going to show it too often because he's on a one-year deal. He's going to want to get another contract. The more he's hurt, the less likely he is to get another contract. So I think he's going to be on the field as much as he possibly can stand this year. And then Matt Ryan at 7.01 as your quarterback one is pretty good value. I don't love taking quarterbacks early, and because you'll be able to get Matt Ryan so late there in the 7th round, you're able to really fill in some good wide receiver options, even a tight end option, again, before you have to take your quarterback. And that's why Atlanta might be my number one stack of the year. Would really love to have all three of these guys together on the same team. You can even get a little bit frisky if you like, and you could try to add Hayden Hurst somewhere in there as well. And then you've got 4 guys. That might be a little bit much for me. That might be a little bit much. And if you decide to go skip on Julio Jones in round 1 and you want to get your running back 1 in round 1, you could do that and then again add Hayden Hurst later on. And then again, you've got your team stack of 3 players from the same team. Now, another team stack that I'm looking at this year that you're probably going to shake your head and moan a little bit about, but I'm going to talk about the Cleveland Browns. I am not off of this train as of yet. Yes, last season they didn't end up playing as well as we would have liked, but I am not done with them yet. Kevin Stefanski is going to have them ready to roll. I think this team now being together for an entire season and an off season will start to click a little bit more, and I think we're going to see some bounce back from this team, especially if they don't have absolutely awful play calling. But the first player in this team stack is going to be Nick Chubb. His ADP right now puts him at the beginning of the second round. So if you're on that 1-2 turn, again, you could go with your running back 1 in round 1 and then get Nick Chubb as your running back 2. You could get your wide receiver 1 in round 1 and go with Nick Chubb as your running back 2 in round 2. At the 4.02, you can get Odell Beckham Jr. Now, I'm going to have a big video on him later on, so I don't want to give you a whole lot of information, but this is a dude that still had over 1,000 receiving yards last year and well over 100 targets. Last year, he was a round 1, round 2 ADP guy. People wanted to have Odell Beckham Jr., okay? Recency bias, though, will get you sometimes, and OBJ falls to the 4th round this year because people are like, oh, Baker Mayfield can't get it done, Odell Beckham Jr. is overrated, whatever it may be. You know what? At the 4.02, more than likely he's going to be your wide receiver 2, and you've absolutely nailed it, especially if you were to go running back, wide receiver, wide receiver. You could go wide receiver, running back, wide receiver, something like that, and you've got yourself a good core. And then later on in the 11th round at the 11.03, you can get their quarterback, Baker Mayfield. He was a dude that went down the field pretty well last season. We have some other stats on Baker Mayfield that might pop up later on as well. But honestly, Baker Mayfield is not as bad as we saw last year. This was a team that was awfully ran. It was a team that was not having the appropriate play calling. It was a team that did not utilize the weapons the best they could outside of Nick Chubb. And that will change this year with Kevin Stefanski now at the helm. Now, the Dallas Cowboys are another team stack that might get a little expensive for their current ADP. So while I'm okay with it, just keep in mind that if you're going to do this one, it could get a little expensive for you. Because at the 1.03, you're going to have an early pick to get Zeke Elliott. So if you're able to get Zeke Elliott, that's great. You're going to have to get him super early in round 1 to do it. And then you're going to have to get probably Amari Cooper in the 3rd round. Right now, his ADP falling at the 3.04. I would not be surprised if that starts to drop a little bit as the offseason continues, though. And again, I know there's a lot of talk about Gallup, Lamb, and Cooper, and a lot of people right now are saying, hey, I'm going to pass on Amari, and I'm going to go with Lamb or Gallup instead. Just keep in mind, I did a must-have wide receivers video a couple of weeks ago that included some really good deep diving information on Amari Cooper that even if it doesn't change your mind, it will still put you in a position to think about Amari Cooper this year and not just write him off. And that is what I want all of Headliner Nation to do. I don't want you just to write players off. I want you to do as much research as possible and find those guys and look at them more in depth and say, man, I really don't like them, but maybe I got to think about it at the right spot. And then with Dak Prescott, this is where things get super expensive because Dak Prescott is going in the 4th round right now. So with this Dallas Cowboys stack, this is why this gets a little expensive for me. Because if you go with Zeke Elliott at the beginning of round 1, more than likely for you to really solidify your team, you're going to have to go with another running back at the end of round 2. Now, if you do that, now you've got Zeke as your running back 1. At the end of round 2, you've got somebody as your running back 2. More than likely, you're going to be looking at like a Clyde Edwards-Helaire or a Leonard Fournette or someone like that back there. And I don't know if I really love that. Then you've got to go with Amari Cooper in the 3rd round and Dak Prescott in the 4th round. So now, one of two ways. It depends on what you've done in the 2nd round. If you get your running back 2 in the 2nd round, that's great. but now you don't get a wide receiver 2 until the 5th round. And because we've had some concerns in the past about Amari Cooper being a little bit up and down with his performance, Amari Cooper might not be the best wide receiver 1 that you want to have on your team. Again, I love Amari Cooper, and honestly, I don't think I want him as my wide receiver 1. I would, however, love to have him as my wide receiver 2. So on the flip side of that, what if we don't go with a running back in round 2? What if we decide, hey, we're going to get our wide receiver 2 in round 2 instead? Our wide receiver 1 in round 2 instead. So now Amari Cooper is your wide receiver 2. However, now you don't have a pick until the 5th round because you got to go Cooper and Prescott. And now you've really dug yourself a hole at running back. Because if you're getting into the 5th round, now you're looking at an option like Darius Geis is your running back 2. Now, for me, if I've got him as my running back 3, okay, I'm fine with that. However, if you're looking at a team that you really want to have a solidified set of running backs, this is going to be really tough to pull off. And that's why with the Dallas Cowboys, hopefully all of that makes sense to you. I don't mind this stack at all. I like this stack because I like the Cowboys offense, but it could make the rest of your team a little bit thin if you try to go this route. And it's all because of that Dak Prescott 4th round ADP right now. So those are like my 3 top options this year. What are some other options that we could take a look at here in 2020 to potentially stack? Well, one of those is the Arizona Cardinals. You could take a look at stacking the Arizona Cardinals if you want to, but I'm a little concerned about that one because you got to go DeAndre Hopkins in the 1st round. You got Kenyon Drake in the 2nd, and then Kyler Murray in the 5th. So with that right there, yeah, you've got DeAndre Hopkins as your wide receiver 1. However, I don't want to spend a 1st round ADP on DeAndre Hopkins. If I get to the end of the 1st round, I would rather take a Devontae Adams or a Tyreek Hill in that area. DeAndre Hopkins, for me, is going to be a mid-wide receiver 1. He's a guy that I would much rather take towards the end of the 2nd round, or for some reason he could fall to the 3rd, which probably isn't going to happen, then I would take him there. So DeAndre Hopkins is going to have to be your wide receiver 1. And I don't know if DeAndre Hopkins has the ceiling this year that he has had in the past when he's been a guy that's gotten a ton of volume. I don't know if all that volume is going to be there this year. So then at that point, you have to make a decision about what you're going to do after Kenyon Drake in the 2nd. Now, this stack, unlike the stack with the Dallas Cowboys, it does give you a little bit of wiggle room where then you could go another running back in the 3rd, a wide receiver in the 4th, and then you get Kyler Murray in the 5th. So that extra round there is going to give you an extra player that's a little bit higher. But again, the DeAndre Hopkins 1.11 ADP is something that worries me this year and not something I really want to invest in. Now, probably one of the best stacks that you're going to get your hands on is the Kansas City Chiefs, right? Well, again, this is where really high ADP and really high investment comes into play and why I'm a little bit concerned on trying to do this. Because now you got to take your quarterback in the 2nd round, which leaves your running back 1 in the 3rd of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And don't get me wrong, we like CEH. We were excited when the Kansas City Chiefs drafted him. However, I do not want him as my running back 1, ladies and gentlemen, because the start of the season is still going to have plenty of Damian Williams. Okay, he's not going anywhere. He's going to see a ton of work on the ground. CEH is going to see a ton of pass catching work, but it might not be until mid-season when CEH really breaks out and then gives you that type of value that you could spend at the 3.06. So now you've really put yourself in a bind because you've got Tyreek Hill. You had to spend an early pick in the 2nd round on Patrick Mahomes. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is your running back 1. Now you got to get your running back 2 in round 4 because if you don't do that and you try to go with another wide receiver there, you're really going to screw yourself at the running back position because then if you try to go another running back in round 5, again, at that point, you're looking at like a Darius Geis in round 5. And if your running backs heading into the year are CEH and Darius Geis, you're probably going to need to increase your blood pressure medication because Sundays are going to be difficult. So that's a couple of other options. 2 other options, again, that I don't mind, but again, I have some concerns over. One is the Minnesota Vikings. Now, with the Minnesota Vikings, you got to spend that early round pick on Dalvin Cook. Kirk Cousins might be one of the best quarterback values that you would get in any of these stacks because you're not going to have to spend a pick on him until the 13th round. So with Dalvin Cook, if you end up taking him somewhere in the 1st, you can get him in the 1st, you can get your running back 2 in the 2nd, and then you could hit Adam Thielen and another wide receiver for your wide receiver 1 and 2 in the 3rd and the 4th. Adam Thielen, I'm not really high on him this year. I've done a video on him already. Again, some of those concerns about Adam Thielen are how is he going to function as the true wide receiver one on the field. In all the research that I have done, again, this isn't a past video. If you want to see it, let me know. I'll link it down below in the comments. Just let me know in the comments, and I'll give you the link there. But with Adam Thielen, the one thing is even though he has seen more volume when Stephon Diggs has not been on the field with him, his efficiency in that volume has gone down. His yards per catch go down. His yards after the catch per reception go down. Touchdowns go down. Efficiency goes down when he doesn't have another true wide receiver one out there with him. So that's my concern this year, is that he won't be able to really come back from some of that. Yeah, he might get enough volume, but can he be efficient with that volume? Then again, Kirk Cousins all the way in the 13th round. You're going to get a lot of you're going to get a lot of room to do a lot of different things with your lineup with this type of a stack here. So again, another stack we're taking a look at with the Tennessee Titans now is going to be with Derrick Henry going in the first round, A.J. Brown in the 4th, and Ryan Tannehill in the 12th. I do like the Tennessee Titans stack more than I like the Minnesota Vikings stack. Now, because of the reason is you can substitute that A.J. Brown pick there. So you're going to go with Derrick Henry in the 1st. And then if you don't want A.J. Brown, then you skip on A.J. Brown. And again, I'm doing that this season. I put 2 videos together on A.J. Brown this year on why I'm concerned about him. Again, if you want to watch those videos and you haven't seen them yet, post a comment down below that you want to see them, and I'll give you the links. But with A.J. Brown, I'm worried because even though he worked deep down the field last year, he was highly efficient while doing that. And if he loses some of that efficiency this year and doesn't see an increase in volume, that could be troublesome. But you could sub that out. Don't worry about A.J. Brown there. Go with Jonnu Smith way, way out in the boondocks, okay? Jonnu Smith's ADP is non-existent right now, okay? And we've been telling you for a while, Jonnu Smith is our pick to break out at tight end this year. Darren Waller was our pick last year. He's essentially the same type of pick that we're making this year with Smith. Absolutely love him this year. So you could, instead of stacking Henry, Brown, and Tannehill, you could stack Henry, Tannehill, and Smith. And also at that point, you've got a lot of wiggle room because your quarterback one isn't going until the 12th, and then your tight end one isn't going until even after that. So that would be one that you could also try as well. Now, here are some tough options. Now, these are ones that are going to be difficult for you to try and pull off. You would have to either see something happen between now and draft day. You would have to we would have to have some things clarify themselves. Baltimore is my first one. Baltimore is a tough option for me because of all the split workload in the backfield. So you could do a team stack of Lamar Jackson with like Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews if you want to. But again, typically with this team stack, you're going to have a running back in there. So do you spin the pick on Mark Ingram? If you do, that's great. But you have to remember that more than likely J.K. Dobbins is going to be getting quite a bit of work this year. You still have Justice Hill. You still have Gus Edwards. And of course, Lamar Jackson running all over the place as well. Mark Ingram is not my favorite running back to pick this year. We loved Mark Ingram last year, and he was a must-have for us last year. We're just not quite creeping up on that territory this year. What about the Buffalo Bills? Well, Stephon Diggs and John Brown, they might split a lot of targets. So if you're going to stack like Singletary and Josh Allen, that's great. But then who do you stack at wide receiver? Is it Diggs? Is it Brown? Do you try to get both of them and then you have both? That might be great in a best ball league. But if you're in one where you're setting your lineup every single week and you're trying to decide between Diggs and Brown, that could get tough. And the other thing about those two as well is you could see whoever the cornerback one is, if it's a guy that floats back and forth and doesn't necessarily stay on one side of the field, they could both see guys on them that are cornerback one status throughout the game. The Detroit Lions are another stack as well, but when will Swift take over? That's the key question there. When does DeAndre Swift take over? If I could go ahead and go with if I knew DeAndre Swift was going to be starting from day one, week one, and Kerryon Johnson was going to be there, but just in a supplemental role, Swift was going to see the majority of the workload in the passing game and on the ground, then give me Galladay, Swift, and Stafford without a doubt. Then that right there probably is second to Atlanta in my favorite stacks this year. But we don't know with DeAndre Swift. When is it going to happen? When is he going to take over the backfield? When will Kerryon Johnson get hurt? Because that's a big thing. Kerryon Johnson is going to hurt himself at some point this year. When does he do that? And at that point, DeAndre Swift will step up. But that's why I've got it as a tough option right now, because it's tough to take Swift right now, hoping that he becomes the starter from day one, because I don't think it happens. I think they split a lot of workload to start. With the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Jones is ADP is just a little bit too high for me right now. And we've talked about Aaron Jones a lot on the channel so far this offseason. We're worried about him heading into next year because with the draft pick of A.J. Dillon, Jones could lose a lot of those touchdowns that he got last year. And he's more a mid-round, like a mid-running back 2 for me right now. But to draft him, you basically have to draft him as your running back 1. And I'm not comfortable with that this year. So because of that, the Green Bay stack is one with Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones, and Aaron Rodgers, who, again, I'm not really high on Aaron Rodgers either. I'm just not feeling that stack this year. Heading on to some more tough options. What about down in Houston? Who's the wide receiver 1? Yeah, you could stack David Johnson. We like him this year. Going to get lots of volume. You could get Deshaun Watson. But who's going to be the real wide receiver 1 there? Okay. Who is it going to be? Cooks? Is Fuller going to stay healthy for an entire season? It's, to me, I'm just a little bit too concerned with that. Randall Cobb is there now. Kenny Stills is still there. Just who's going to be the wide receiver 1? So it's tough to stack a team when you don't know who that wide receiver 1 is going to be. The Los Angeles Chargers, who's their quarterback going to be to start the year? I believe it's going to be Tyrod Taylor. I don't mind Tyrod Taylor, especially if you're in a super flex or a 2 QB league. I don't love Tyrod Taylor as my quarterback 1. I don't love him that much. I like Ty God Taylor, as we like to call him around here. Sorry, Chris Chouse, okay? Our buddy Chris Chouse here at the Fantasy Headliners doesn't like Tyrod, and whenever he talks about him, I tell him, you have to refer to him as Ty God or you can't talk about him. But anyway, I don't want Tyrod Taylor as my quarterback 1. Maybe in a super flex or a 2 QB league, but other than that, not interested in it. The New England Patriots. Some of their guys are shooting up the board with the signing of Cam Newton. However, this one's going to be tough to pull off because Edelman and White are both going in the 8th round right now. So again, you could, if you want to say I want to stack these guys, and again, if I'm stacking one of the running backs, it's going to be James White. I've got a lot more information coming on James White. Really like him this year. But if you take Cam Newton, you're going to have to either take Edelman or White way earlier than their ADP to ensure that you get them. Because of that, and then also with a lot of the fluctuating ADP with New England right now, we don't really know where a lot of these guys are going to stand. So New England is a tough one for me currently. And again, I mentioned them at the beginning of the video, but the New Orleans Saints, Kamara and Thomas are both going in the 1st round. So unless you're in some type of league where you can trade draft picks and you're able to get 2 first-round picks, you're not going to get Kamara and Thomas. So you're not going to be able to stack them with Drew Brees. Now you could take Kamara or Thomas in the 1st round, and you could stack one of those guys along with Drew Brees and maybe Jared Cook if you wanted to try that type of stack with New Orleans. But I don't know if I'm really wanting to do that. Jared Cook isn't a bad option for me this year. But I don't know if I'm loving him as much as some other people are. I don't mind him, but for me to go out there and stack this team, I'm not necessarily targeting Jared Cook to make that work. A few more tough options as well. In Pittsburgh, Connor and Juju Smith-Schuster both going in the 4th round. That's going to make it difficult. So you're going to have to reach on one of those guys. And more than likely, you would reach on the JJSS, Juju Smith-Schuster. You reach on him in the 3rd, grab Connor in the 4th. But again, do you trust Ben Roethlisberger to be your quarterback 1? And again, these team stacks, if you're looking at the quarterback and you're saying, man, I don't know if he'd be my quarterback 1, then there's no reason to be looking at stacking that team. The New York Giants. I don't mind Daniel Jones this year. I've got more information coming up later in the offseason on him too. For the New York Giants this year, who's their wide receiver 1? Okay, I like Golden Tate. Darius Slayton, I like. Sterling Shepard, I know there's some other people that are a little bit higher on him than I am. I think he ends up turning into the wide receiver 3 in terms of volume on that team this year. But Slayton's going to be the big play guy. Golden Tate's going to get peppered with a lot of targets. So with this, you can stack Barkley and you can stack them along with Daniel Jones. But number one, right away, you got to have an early 1st round pick. You got to either have the 1st or 2nd overall pick. If you don't have that, you're not going to be able to stack this team anyway. So that's going against you. You got to get that early round pick. But then on top of that, who you're going to take as your wide receiver 1. Tough to stack a team when you don't know that. For the Seattle Seahawks, Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, they're probably going to be splitting a lot of targets this year. It's not necessarily just going to be Metcalf. I think Metcalf's a little bit safer than Lockett. Lockett's got a little bit more big play upside for me. But also too, you're gonna have to draft Chris Carson. So if you don't believe in Chris Carson, you can't stack Seattle anyway. So maybe if you wanted to, and this might be a good idea in best ball leagues, but if you got Russell Wilson, then you could go Metcalf and Lockett. That might not be bad in best ball leagues, because then whoever is the wide receiver one that week, you're gonna get that guy in your lineup. The other guy that's not the wide receiver one is gonna kind of get flushed to the side. And the last one here to talk about the Washington whatevers right now, because they don't currently have a name. Will Geis lead the backfield? And for some reason or another, I put an extra E in there. I don't know why I did it. Headliner Nation, sometimes mistakes happen and typos happen, and I apologize. Okay, but I could have gone back and recorded 20 some odd minutes of this, or I can just tell you, hey all, I messed up. I apologize. Extra E, and we'll move on with it. Because you know what? Nobody's perfect, including us. We're pretty darn close. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, so for Washington, will Geis lead the backfield? You know, that's a tough one. I love Darius Geis. I'm on board with Darius Geis. I think this could be his year if he stays healthy. But are you willing to invest? And you also, on top of that, you're going to have to get McLaurin at a decent ADP. And do you trust Dwayne Haskins to be your quarterback one? Because if you don't, then again, you're not interested in stacking this team anyway. And Headliner Nation, that's going to do it. I hope you enjoyed this format of Mock Draft Monday. A little bit different than just the normal mock drafts we've done in the past. But again, we're trying to talk a little bit of strategy with you on what you should be doing if you're mock drafting right now, so you can get yourself ready for 2020. So if you like this type of format, let us know down below in the comments. And also comment with your favorite team stack. What team stack, if you had the ability to choose, would you pick for here in 2020? Let us know. Of course, if you like the video, make sure you hit the like button before you get out here, but also hit that subscribe button as well. And stick around, Headliner Nation, because we've got plenty of content from now until the end of the season. And I guarantee you, you are not going to want to miss any of it. So help us on our drive to 100,000 subscribers and become a part of Headliner Nation today. Hopefully you all are staying safe, staying healthy. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Fantasy Headliners, and I will catch you on the next episode.